Hello, everyone. Well, I think it's working. The quality's not very good. I don't know if I can fix that. Hello, planet. Hello, rock. It's quite the name you got there. I've not caught a live stream before. That's because I almost never do them. That would be why. Dang, those are nice, user. Congratulations. My content, I actually don't use very much. I haven't for a while, but I don't know how much you think I make, but it's very, very, very little. And I upload several hundred videos every single year. So I can't, I'm not using Microsoft Paint, for my content. So, all right, Bourbon, that's up to you. I don't know. Do I believe in an eternal universe? I don't have a problem with it. I don't really have a belief about pay somebody to make thumbnails. So I should pay a professional artist 100 thumbnails every year. That's absolutely never going to happen. Plus, I need stuff every single day. They would absolutely never be able to keep up with my time scale for work or whatever, my schedule. The audio is chippy on the YouTube stream, and I don't really know what to do about that. Have I released my new book yet? I mean, it says it's out now. Guess I haven't read much about the issue. Okay. Hire multiple people. I have a mortgage.
Oh, damn. How are you today?
Hello?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I had my volume all the way down. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How are you today?
Good enough.
Okay. I hope you have a better day at some point. I've seen you on my channel a lot. It's actually quite funny. I just wanted to ask, creationism is dumb. That statement. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit just before we start talking about it?
Specifically, young Earth creationism, the idea that Earth is only a few thousand years old is equally as dumb as thinking the Earth is flat.
So, I'm agreeing that the Earth is not a couple thousand years old. Are you disqualifying the idea of a creator then?
I don't believe in a creator, but if other people want to believe in that, fine. But I don't think anybody's ever produced any evidence or very good arguments.
Okay, then. Very good arguments. Are we referring to when you say evidence? What? Sorry, you okay?
Yeah.
When you say evidence, what do you feel would qualify as provable evidence for a creator, besides the actual speaking to the creator?
One problem I think is that if the creator is outside our domain, then I think it's probably fundamentally unknowable. That's why I'm an agnostic atheist. but there's also, it sounds like a cop out answer, but it really isn't. And you just said creator, you didn't specialize it in any way. But if there's supposedly some sort of perfect omni being out there, then that being knows exactly how to prove that it exists, and it clearly hasn't.
Yeah, that's fair. So no, I didn't specify. I went creator. I'm pantheist, so I don't affiliate to a particular deity. I just believe in a creator. I don't really know how to feel about which one. Um, so them existing outside of our domain. So do you then believe that there exists a metaphysical universe? Then there is something outside of our physical universe.
No, I don't believe that.
So, okay, so you don't believe in something that exists outside of our physical domain, but if there was a creator, they would have to exist outside of our domain.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah.
Uh, okay, those seem kind of contradicting then.
No,
Um,
because I didn't say it doesn't exist. I said I don't believe in it.
okay, then let's. So, okay. You don't believe in another the domain outside of our universe existing if a deity were
No.
to exist.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I mean, I just think have you ever heard of the uh the book Logic, Truth, and or Knowledge? What is it called? Language, Knowledge, and Truth. What the fuck? I'm literally reading this book. Language, Truth, and Logic. Yeah.
Language, truth, and
It's
logic.
Yeah, it's by his name is AJ Ayer, and he was particularly influenced by this group of scientists and philosophers. They called themselves the Vienna Circle, and they pushed forward this idea of like logical positivism, and they were really big on verificationism. And a lot of them kind of thought that metaphysics might just be complete nonsense.
I would agree.
And I think a lot of it is pretty persuasive because if you make the claim that like something, I'd full because if you can't validate or substantiate or support a claim with anything, then it's just a tautological, completely useless claim. Now, but that wouldn't account to like logic. Those aren't supposed to represent something real. They are meant only to represent something abstract. And if
Yep.
God or whatever or heaven really exists in a different realm, it, it, I think it's just completely. It's just not a useful claim.
Yeah,
I
well, I do.
articulated that very poorly, but like I said, I just
No, it's
started
okay. I got the gist.
reading it.
Um, it sounds like it's from a Scotsman as well. Um, so I agree. I don't really believe in the metaphysical universe. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it would kind of make it confusing for our universe to exist. Then why does our universe have the laws that it does if there is a space where these laws that clearly can't apply because it's outside of? Um, but going back, I want to try and stay on that creationism as best as I can. I'm known for tangents. Everybody I talk to, it's always tangent this and that. Um, so I think the best way I can articulate then would be to do with do you see any logic to the formation of sentiency?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that.
So we can agree that sentiency is somewhat unique to particular organisms on this planet. Yeah, like plant cells, we don't determine them to have sentiency to the extent that humans do.
Yeah. I I'm
Do you
fine with
see
that.
logic? Do you see logic in why there is a difference in we're both
Between sentient and non-sentient things.
yeah, do you see logic in not having sentiency?
Oh, so I think I don't want to say this. To me, the way I think about it is what fundamentally makes life a little bit different, especially from this sentience
Mm.
lens or whatever, is that living thing. This is research on. I was doing like debunking episodes for this podcast I have. I was going over debunked scientific ideas of the past.
Yeah.
And one was on what's called like the vital essence, which was oftentimes called the soul. And what philosophers like, I think Aristotle and a few others argued was that living things are internally driven, and that's what makes them fundamentally unique. And I actually really like that because I used to actually have a pretty good way of putting this, but I never like wrote it down and I never talk about it. So this will probably come out pretty poor. But inanimate objects are literally only change by virtue of their environment exerting forces
On them.
upon them. That's
Yeah,
it.
they experience
Except for like nuclear decay, I guess is technically it's technically internal, I suppose.
I mean that's
Whereas living
entropy though.
things, yeah, whereas living things, but they also have internal drives and causes that cause them to affect themselves and their external environment, which I think is a pretty cool and useful distinction because if we were going to discover some form of life somewhere else in the universe, it may not be biological in any kind of sense that we can understand it, but if it does that, then that's I think that would be
Understandable.
indicative of some form of life. Now, of that human beings are sentient, and that's because I'm meta aware and I can make that claim. But
You
what is
have the
it
ability
boiled?
to make a choice.
Yeah, but what does it boil down to? Well, I think it. If I were going to try to word it or whatever, I would say it's going to have to come from what I was talking about a little bit ago, because what a living thing does is it I guess it kind of ultimately rests in the ability to react to stimuli in your environment and then produce some sort of action to it. Now, that doesn't mean like how do I say it? Like
Okay, so
literally,
reductionist then, yeah.
yeah, I mean like a phosphorescent mineral like in a way does that because when light hits it, it will
Mm,
phosphoresce a different color or fluoresce a different color, whatever. But I don't think that's the same. And again, I'm literally just thinking out loud, so I don't have a
no spitball at
sophisticated way to
all.
put it. But there we go.
Yeah, it is interesting because I mean, I don't go to the extent that you do. I mean, I'm only bloody 24 and I've got a kid, so I'm exhausted most of the time. I ain't got the ability to read a whole lot. I used to read, but it's gone out the window. I'm now kids' books all the time. But back to it. So I like to interpret. Okay, I find it logical to interpret sentiency from the ability to make choices and preference.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily just those internal drives, because if you have two situations that can result in an equal amount of, let's call it pleasure, like if I were to eat a hamburger or a hamburger with cheese, but I have absolutely no preference to whether I want the hamburger with cheese or not, and it's going to cost me nothing. I'm hit fit, so I don't need to worry about the calories. It's those kinds of things. It's about being able to exert a preference all of a sudden, because as I said, like I've got cats, and if I gave my cats bloody two different flavored pouches, they aren't going to have that same level of preference. I could throw all of the pouches out there, salmon, chicken, turkey, beef, and they would just eat them all. It's that level of sentiency because they can.
Yeah.
Animals can experience emotions, but we can. It's preference that I think we could stem from, because in the way I understand it, preference does it. 100% of the time, and I like to pick at the things that just aren't 100% repeatable, because those are the ones that you can unpick. You can't unpick something that's 100% repeatable. The way possessing sentiency. Oh my god, why am I struggling right now? Eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Why is it that prokaryotes never developed sentiency, or did not develop sentiency the same way that we, as coming from eukaryotics?
Well, they're not complex enough, I would say, to do that. I mean, you could, like in theory, you could build a computer that can do what modern computers do with vacuum tubes, but it's so impractical, and it would take so much energy and be so huge that it's not going to happen. But like in theory it could. But for a prokaryote, they just literally lack the complexity to be able to do. I don't think that they lack it, because I'm pretty sure I'm not 100% sure about bacteria, but they have
Bacteria.
they have spots on their cell membranes that are photosensitive. So it's not an eye, but it's like what an eye does.
It reacts
It's
to,
sensitive to
yeah.
light. So if you're in the ocean, if you're a unicellular organism just out in, it's not even the ocean, but we'll just say the ocean, UV light will degrade and destroy your DNA. So if they have that, it allows them to react to sunlight and not decide in any kind of way, but react to it and go down deeper into them and then stay there. And that's just an innate survival reflex. But
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
self-preservation.
just because we talk about them doesn't mean that we aren't necessarily just biological robots with innate biological reflexes too. And then they come up closer to the surface when the sun is not out or whatever. So I
Yeah.
think they do that kind of thing. It's just less sophisticated.
Sophistication then. Well then, bringing it into the comparison of humans then, because so if we were to, so complexity and their, apologize. So plants are too simple to possess sentiency. The energy requirements just aren't appropriate. However, we can observe large, what do you call it? We have large areas that are big old plants. It's the
Yeah, Pando in Utah.
yeah, it's just
Plant,
one large plant, and there
yeah,
we're able to see that plants are capable of maximizing their ability to absorb energy via photosynthesis and therefore an uptake of nutrients.
yeah. Well, they communicate with other plants too. They've been able to find, and this happens because of a symbiotic relationship with fungi. But they've found that if two trees that are next to each other and they share a mycelium network with their root system, if one tree, and even if they're different species, if
No,
one tree,
mycelium are eukaryotic, not prokaryotic.
yeah, but you're talking about trees just a little bit ago, right?
Yeah, trees as in prokaryotics. I want to
No,
hold on to plants because
prokaryotes are bacteria and archaea.
why am I bugging? What's
Plants and animals would be.
oh my god, I'm bugging, aren't I? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say, and like it doesn't matter because everything I no plants. What they've found is that when a bug, or I don't know if they've done this with fire, and some sort of like bark beetle or whatever invades one plant, it releases. I don't know
Warning
what the
signals.
chemicals are, but it can travel through the mycelium network and then go to a neighboring tree, even if it's of a different species. And that tree can do things like secrete excess sap that will ward off the bug. So they have what we would call an immune system response, essentially, built within them that can actually be communicated to other members, which is pretty remarkable. And I think that that's a kind of I have the hiccups, a kind of sentience.
Okay. I would do my little scare tactic to get rid of the hiccups, but I don't think it'd work through the great old internet. Yeah, I it's troublesome though because again, I so I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's like again I come to that uh preference because of sentiency in that in that idea. I can't You're not wrong. However, what I'm hearing is more self-preservation driven and external factors. I don't want to have my little bubble invaded. I don't want to have threats to my well-being. Therefore, this is the reaction that I'm going to have. I am aware of a stimulus,
Well,
and
I
this is
thought
my reaction.
I thought that's what compatibilism was when something acts in according. I mean, if we're allowed to attempt to describe free will in that sense, then I actually don't really see how a plant doing that is not kind of the same thing. Now you can say because a plant lacks a mind, it doesn't even have desires, and it's like, well, I
No, I'm not
mean, whatever.
not necessarily mind because mind is very tricky. I think. I mean, we could have the whole argument of where does the soul exist and where does life exist? Brainstem death, heart stop beating. What do we go on with? But it's the preference because my anecdote was to do with the fact that I would make a choice based on no other information, regardless. I'm a fit person. I don't need to worry about calories. I don't need to worry about money. I've got a burger. I purely prefer. I'm going to get some illogical kind of reaction because I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm just going to have some weird affiliation that I'm going to choose the burger with cheese on it because who knows what. I've just got this weird thought in. And
You're
that's
just a goofy guy like that.
exactly just feeling goofy. And I'm like, how can plants be goofy then? How can we. No, actually, let's take it a step back. How can we observe a plant being goofy? It's really tricky to do that because then I'm here thinking, because it all just seems very much we have 99% of organic life being purely self-preservation driven, and I agree most things are self-preservation. I think a lot of religion was actually based in self-preservation and it was created for the purposes of, but I'm still struggling with the logic of not possessing sentiency, not possessing a preference. Does that make sense?
I mean, kind of. You're just saying the plant doesn't have preferences, I
Not that it
suppose.
doesn't have preference. We can't, I don't know how to determine a plant showing its preference, but like,
Sure. Well,
can
I
we say
mean,
that all
they
organic
they
life
grow they grow
possesses?
up they grow up to reach more sunlight and compete with
That's a
other plants.
self-preservation because growing up means they get more light, they get the energy, and that's
Okay, so it's not
self-preservation.
preference.
That's what I mean. It's so tricky because I'm not saying it. I've got the answer, but it's so like how do we observe a preference in something that we can't understand completely, and then how do we determine the logic of possessing a preference? It doesn't have any internal drives.
Well, I am uniquely unqualified to answer that for you. Sorry. We did about 20 minutes there, so I'm going to have to get to
Yeah,
the
it's
other
all
people that
good.
are waiting.
Better day.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Be safe.
I mean, my day was fine. I just usually say good enough. Just, I don't know, for no reason. Oh,
Greetings.
real quick. Hold on. I gotta do something real quick. Shawnee Boy, thanks for the super chat over on YouTube. Those of you on TikTok, I don't know, I'm streaming on YouTube as well. Keep up the good work. Love the content. And I read your book to kids. We all love it. So yeah, my books, I mean, they're easy to read. And then Dr. Pizza said, I know God is real because he doesn't ask me to read books like science does. I don't even have to read his book. It's like sarcasm to me. That sounds like an ironic statement, but I don't know. So, whatever. That was it. So, anyways, how's it going?
Good, good. I wanted to run by you an argument that I've just formulated called the quantum consciousness argument. Naturalism is true to do this.
Okay, give me a second. All right, the quantum consciousness argument for God. Go ahead.
So, premise one, consciousness can arise from purely physical configurations of information.
Okay,
This is
I'm gonna write this down. So give me a second.
okay.
Okay. P1.
Can arise from purely physical configurations of information.
Okay.
And do you want to talk about that, or just go through the whole thing first?
I mean I don't even disagree. So
Yeah. I think it's well supported in science. So,
yeah, I'm a meat machine and I'm conscious. So I think I have to agree.
oh yeah, for sure. So, premise two, the pre-Big Bang state of reality was a quantum foam, hyphen explaining what that is, which is a superposition of all possible physical configurations. This is kind of the key premise, and I have another argument to support it if we need to.
Sure.
All right, premise three. In superposition, then at least some of those states contain the necessary conditions for consciousness.
If all possible states exist in superposition, then at least some of those states contain the. Yeah, I think that would have to be the case. Yeah.
Cool. Premise four, last premise. If conscious states were present before physical reality took definite form, then consciousness is more fundamental than matter.
Interesting. And then, is there a conclusion, or is it just that?
The conclusion is that essentially a primordial mind existed before the universe, from which our reality emerged, and this is what we call God.
Even like a classical theistic personal God or anything like that, or this is your description of God?
This is theistic God, but it could be personal too, and I have an explanation for how. It could actually desire things. I have an explanation for how, but it works through us. Like its desires are our desires essentially, because it just knows all things that we know. So it would essentially be a mind that chose between possible realities that are logically possible and chose the best one based off of the conscious beings within each of those realities.
Okay, I myself only have like one original thought about this, and it's going to come from P4 and the conclusion. But I ran this through Chat GPT because I'm not if Blitz able to go through this pretty well, but he's not here right now. So what it says here with P1 potential issue, does information mean physical configurations of matter or abstract possibilities?
Oh, abstract possibilities. Physical configurations it means like literal physical possibilities. So when they mean abstract, I don't actually know what they mean by that. Do they mean non-physical possibilities?
Well, because I think it's because information is kind of a abstract nebulous term, or it can be. So they want to know if by consciousness can arise from purely physical configurations of information. Does information mean physical configuration of matter or abstract possibilities? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, it definitely means physical configuration of matter.
Okay.
Yeah, but the key here is that the physical configurations are just to show that we don't need to assume dualism for this argument to work. The key here, if for premise one, is that consciousness arises from configurations of information. specifically, because physical matter
Right.
is information. Like, information is more fundamental than physical matter.
So do you think you may have a problem there where you're reifying the term information when it's literally just something else?
Information is something else. What do you mean?
Because you said the information is just the configurations of matter, right?
No, I'm saying that physical configurations of matter contain information as a property.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess the reification could occur if you're treating that property as if it is something else, when it's literally just a description of the matter, you know?
Oh, okay. So as if information is a thing in itself, when really it's just
Yeah.
like language we use to describe the shape of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're treating information that way. I'm just saying maybe that's a possible issue. The other thing it said here was if specific physical conditions are required, then consciousness would not arise in just any configuration. But I mean, you said the
Yeah.
quantum state contains all possible configurations, so I don't think that's actually really much of a problem.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the premise 1-1, but you can keep going as I think about it.
I mean, what it says about premise 2 is just that the nature of the pre-Bang reality is unknown. So, I mean, there's
have an
nothing really to criticize, but
Yeah, you can make an argument for parsimony about that one. That if you take in all of the data that we have and theories, that the quantum foam is the theory that posits the least amount of extra stuff, like compared to string theory and stuff like that. And it doesn't. It's like the simplest explanation that doesn't require or posit assumptions as much as the others. So that would be my reason for believing the quantum foam theory is the best pre-Big Bang like idea of reality.
okay. Premise 3, if all possible states contain the necessary conditions for consciousness. This just reminds me so much of God must exist because God's a being. It's better that it does exist than not exist. So if there's a possible world where it could exist, therefore it does exist. It reminds me of that, which is funny. It says, issue with that, just because all possible physical states exist in superposition does not mean functional consciousness emerges from them. I don't really know what to say to that.
No, that's actually a really good objection, because it's possible that conscious in particular, like the way in the superposition idea, experience time. So it's possible that it wouldn't be conscious.
So could this be the thing, like, just because you have all possible configurations of matter doesn't mean those configurations of matter occur in a sequence that produces consciousness? Because, like, eventually I'm going to die, right? And I won't be conscious. My brain is going to rot. What if I cycle between, like me today, and then in the next moment, my brain consists of that configuration of matter? There's nothing to say if time can go forward or backward, but it doesn't like skip from point A to point Z to point D or anything like that. But yeah, I guess you could argue that you can't escape that those configurations of matter have to occur in a sequence for consciousness to really work. And what's to say that those possibilities can't just occur in a random order? I think that's interesting.
Right. I like the random order thing you said. I have a response to it. I think that even time itself is describable. So some of the states that the quantum foam would have would include informationally the passage of time, even though it would exist outside of time. It would just include the information of time passing. Does that make sense?
Get a little bit distracted because we have a question on YouTube. God equals the square root of -1 wants to know if the quantum foam died for our sins or not.
Well, the quantum foam is the fundamental structure for your sins. Then the quantum foam also died for your sins because it is the fundamental layer of that person that died for your sins. So
it's also responsible for all of your problems in that case.
Yes, indeed. It is simultaneously responsible. But I mean, come on, under the Christian worldview, God did all of the evil as well.
No, I know. Yeah, believe me, I know.
Yeah, there's no getting around that.
There's another, it had a different issue in premise 3. Consciousness, as we understand it, requires organization, memory, and processing, which may not exist in an undifferentiated quantum superposition. So I think, I don't know. To me, that's like saying, look, if I take an apple and put it in a blender, literally every piece of information about the apple is there, but, well, that's actually probably all of the matter is conserved. We could even say all the energy is conserved, but it doesn't actually contain the information that would allow you to reconstruct it. So perhaps a quantum state has that fundamental problem as well. Maybe it's an information black hole in a way. I don't know.
I think it's an information white hole, but I would say that the information to reconstruct the apple is there. It's just not accessible with today's current technology, but is theoretically there. Like you can, if you knew, if we didn't have the uncertainty problem with quantum mechanics, if we could observe the actual like wave function, momentum, like all of the things involved, I imagine we could reconstruct the apple. It's just a limit of our observational abilities as human beings. But I hold to super determinism. I don't think that random causation is a thing.
Okay. Where are we at? Premise 4 was if conscious states were present before physical reality took form, then consciousness is more fundamental than matter. It says if consciousness depends on physical information structures, as assumed in P1, then it needs a material or informational medium. So I think it's saying that the quantum state doesn't, it's kind of like P3 to me. That's saying the quantum state doesn't contain the same information as the physical form, therefore it doesn't actually contain any kind of consciousness or anything.
Yeah, I don't see a problem because it is information. It doesn't have to be physical. I think information is fundamental to matter. It exists before matter. It's more like information is like the structure of reality from a metaphysical standpoint, but it's represented by physical stuff, which is just like I don't know. I don't know if that is an issue. I'm still thinking about what Various said. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle is nature itself being unsure. I think you're right. I just need to think about like exactly what that means. Pick up David Griffith's textbook on quantum mechanics. Okay, I will. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, I'm ignoring the comments. Hey, Peterson, for an example, I think that's probably an old comment talking about the apple in a blender. It also says for P4, this does not necessarily lead to an eternal, independent mind, only the possibility that consciousness might have existed before our universe. I sort of forgot what my original take on this exactly was going to be, but I know it was something sort of like, well, I don't think I don't know if this tells me we have an eternal mind, because the mind to me is just part of the universe itself. It doesn't exist apart from the universe, you know? So
Yeah.
that's...
Well, remember, we're talking about the universe in two different states. We're talking about the state of the universe within time and within the Big Bang, and then the state of the universe theoretically outside the structure of the Big Bang, which, again, I hold to fourth dimensional space-time, like Minkowski space. I don't think that time is separate from space, and I think that it's like a quantum foam exists, basically creates the structure of time. And we just experience time passing because we're inside of it, but it all exists at once.
Yeah, I mean, the general relativity kind of blew the lid off this and said, well, actually, the past, present, and future kind of all have to simultaneously exist. And it's like, what the fuck? That's very hard to deal with. It's convenient for me because I don't believe in free will, and that makes it completely impossible. And the science kind of backs it up. So, oh God, is there anything that I can do with my microscopic brain to add to this? So what? Well, I think I know what you mean, but when you say consciousness is more fundamental than matter, you say that because you think that this argument grants that consciousness exists before matter takes on the form it does as we understand it, right?
Yeah, because pre-Big Bang, the quantum field still consisted of fundamental particles of like whatever unifying force we have yet to discover. And so because of that, they're still technically like physical, they're energy. but they're fluctuations in a quantum field. They're not matter. So that premise is just saying that consciousness comes before matter, like mass, not necessarily comes before energy.
Okay. Oh yeah, there was the conclusion. So it said two things about the conclusion. Even if we accept the premises, this does not logically necessitate an eternal mind. I guess it's telling you it's not. It's either telling you it's not deductive or the premises aren't like guaranteed. It only suggests that some pre-Big Bang states might contain consciousness. The other thing it says is a temporary conscious state in pre-Big Bang reality is not the same as an eternally existing, fully developed mind. That's what it says.
Can you run that last sentence by me again?
A temporary conscious state in pre-Big Bang reality is not the same as an eternally existing, fully developed mind.
Right. I think this is solved by the unified nature of the quantum foam. It's not like it's a superposition of all possible states independent from one another. It's a superposition of all possible states existing at all at once. So it's like a qubit. It exists as a one, anything between 1 and 0 on the wave function all at once, rather than so all those temporary minds are unified in a way.
Okay. I mean, it's cool. To watch this video, and he can maybe he'll do like a react video to it.
I've been waiting
or something
to school me on quantum mechanics because I have disagreements with Blitz on his interpretation, and I've been told to talk.
Interesting.
I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet.
Well, you said you're a hard determinist.
Yes.
Well, I think he would agree with that.
Yeah,
because
I think he is as well.
Yeah, because he takes on the Everett interpretation. Because what I know very little about this, but when I talk to others, really do actually prove that there are certain things that are just fundamentally unpredictable. But that's if you have a Copenhagen interpretation of what happens when the wave function collapses. If you take the many worlds or the Everett interpretation, it's not the same problem. It actually still can be. The reasons why, I'm not the guy for that.
Yeah, well,
So.
he like my key thing with Blitz is that I think he is like saying that superposition is not like like a mathematical representation of an unknown variable. But the Bell's theorems, like you said, disprove that very thing. So I really don't know what he has to say about that it's been disproven, and yet he still says that it's superposition is just a variable.
Well, yeah. I don't know either. So we may probably have to leave it there.
Yeah, thanks for discussing this with me. I gotta some stuff to look into for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, don't thank me, thank ChatGPT, because it had far more to say than I did. And by that I mean more than nothing. Hello?
What's going on, man?
Much?
How's your day going?
It's going fine.
That's good. That's good. Appreciate you letting me jump on here. I probably not educated enough in terms of science field, but I was and just got incredibly intrigued by it. So I don't know when you started the live video. I don't know a ton about your goals in your live video. So, but I would love to add to the conversation at some level if I can. Would you do me a favor, just catch me up to speed a little bit on your goals for this live video? And I don't know.
I just like to, so, I mean, the reason I do what I do is because, I was a teacher for like 10 years or whatever. And so I just think that like education is important. And I think that there's so much, disregard for really pretty basic scientific facts that I really feel the need to push against it. There are a lot of creators that do the same kind of thing I do that are sort of like, I would call them atheist evangelists. And I'm not that, although I do have no evidence for gun, but I'm not an anti-theist or anything like that. So, but what I sort of bring to the table and to the world is, anybody would tell you it's like Some people would say, but I think my audience breaks down into almost perfect is pretty much just purely entertainment. And like he knows stuff and that's how he goes about it, but he's an entertainer. A third of people are like, I watch Planet Pearson's stuff because I learn a lot from it. And then another third say it's both. So
Yeah, and I get that. I feel like
that's what we do here, I guess.
you definitely come across as someone who's mission itself, and not as much as just I'm on a mission and a crusade to just deconstruct everything you believe. Just on both sides of the spectrum. So a little quick backstory.
Believe me, a lot of this is not enjoyable. I am a martyr for science.
I understand that, but on a probably totally opposite spectrum. So very, very quick backstory about me, just to not tooting horns, just literally just provide quick context of where I come from. So I was 17 years old, which is a whole nother fun backstory. And working in churches, both large mega churches with thousands of people and small church plants, both in the South and the Midwest and different places of the country. Went to seminary, got my biblical studies degree, and then about in 2020, so this would have been about 15 years of being a pastor, just got very burned out from the large separation between what I believe Jesus desired for his followers and what the modern church has become. So I stepped away from it, became an author, enhanced my, continued to study biblical studies, history, and now just use my platform to unity. I don't know if I'll ever succeed at that, but my desire is to just, for at least the people that follow me, is to raise awareness to like, hey, I believe the church can be different. However, but also I believe that the way that most of us have been taught about God and religion isn't right. And so I want to try to facilitate those conversations for my people. So that's the long backstory on me, or at least as short as I can make it. Now I'll get to the point of why you're doing this video. So based on what you're setting up, the earth is not flat, which I actually would, agree with, that's probably the most basic sense one, is dumb. I actually also agree with that as well. I believe creationism is, and I believe the evolution is true as well. I believe the Big Bang is also true, despite that I believe in a theist and I believe in God. Something that that's a hard one, because I feel like that's a double-edged sword, because it's like there's no evidence for God, but there's also no evidence to disprove God. That's one of those catch-22 things. But I do believe at some level may not be evidence for God, but I do believe that there is, if we tap into the multiple understandings of knowledge. I think knowledge expands beyond just the physical, what we can see. I've ended this a little bit in your previous conversation, but I'm not sure because I jumped in like about the time that I commented. There's this way that I think that if we access both the emotions, the spirit, and the physical, because I believe that if we filter the things that we learn through it's finding the right puzzle piece. It's the right thing that I am motivated to know my why. Why am I? I think it helps create a better sense of clarity and connection between the scientific things that we learn and when we look at things for what they are, like the Bible, for example, which is not the word of God, but a collection of literary documents and how people believe they themselves have interacted with God within their own time. And I think we have the opportunity to learn from that and to learn more about ourselves and the world around us. So.
I mean, okay. Look, I think genuinely have good intentions for using Christianity as a tool. Go around saying a secularist. I don't do that. And especially because people like, I don't know, Trump is an obvious one, but even J.D. Vance are not good people for any basic Christian nationalist or whatever, are not generally good for the faith or anything like that. You seem like the kind of guy that when you see the "He Gets Us" ads, you're like, yeah, rather than what kind of San Francisco queer wrote that goddamn commercial,
which is 100% correct. But for me, I also take it a step further where I'm the guy where I'm like, I see that he gets us mad, and I'm like, that's a great video that was made, but I also know the money that they're using to fund to get this ad is some pretty wicked sources that aren't really good, and so that's when, from my side of the world, it gets even deeper and more complex in that regard. Where I'm very much your anti-Westboro Baptist.
Yeah.
And very much and I'm just me personally, I'm anti-Christians involved in politics in general. I think across the board. Now that's where I can allow myself to be a black sheep. I go as far to say I don't believe Christians should vote, but that's also a very, very, very personalized
that's
opinion.
a Jehovah's Witness thing.
Yeah, but then again, it's also one of those things where I'm very much like, I can see the desire and the responsibility to vote. So it's one of those things. I'm not a Christian.
Yeah, that's to me. That's a little. We don't really have anything to debate, so I'll let you go here in a little bit. But that one has always been really weird to me because that fundamentally, I don't see how that doesn't lead to complete anarchy. Because it's like, if you don't think that Christians should vote, but don't you think there should be more Christians in the world? So in a perfect world, we would all be Christians, but we'd have no ability to form complex society, like to have a government or whatever. And then it's like, yeah, that doesn't actually. I don't. Well, that seems a little bit weird to me.
I would say a perfect, because I think by itself, in a perfect world, this assumes because I think we should take it the furthest step we can. In a truly perfect world, there's no evil, there's no greed, there's no corruption, there's no violence, there's no poverty, there's none of these things. And I think people have gotten so fixated on becoming winners, when in reality, this is why I believe, this is where my distinction of following Jesus is. Jesus taught us that those who are ultimately trying to be first will be last, and those who are last will be first. And I think he showed that up by showing that the desire to actually make the world better is not by creating a scarcity mindset, but an abundant mindset. And choosing, if you want to make the world better, it's by using your own life to give life to the world. To the point that he illustrated, to the point that he was willing to be murdered and gave himself, like, do you believe he rose from the grave? That there's no evidence for or against. There's that's a whole different thing. It's a matter of faith. But what is true is that we can see replicated is that I would believe in a perfect world there is no Christians. There are, because in the perfect world, all of the evil is wrong and is made right. And in a perfect world, now I believe following Jesus is the path that gets us there. But that's because the message that he taught, I believe, has so much substance. And I personally believe that his resurrection is real. So I think it solidified his desire for what his messaging is true and what he calls us to. And I'm not much of a debater, so I definitely am not going to fault you or be offended if you want to bring someone else to like debate you, because I'm more of just someone who always likes to add to the conversation. If you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. So that's anyway, I found it all fascinating. I think the only point that I wanted to bring was, if you're not anti-theist, that's not what I'm going at. If you're anti looking at the spiritual and exploring spirituality, I think that would be the only point that I would say maybe consider spirituality, maybe consider thinking of these things, because I think in different filters that help you see the science that you study even better. And I just see that as someone who's not scientifically knowledgeable, but every time I learn something new about like quantum mechanics or physics, there's a part of me with all the theological knowledge and biblical knowledge that goes, oh man, I'm connecting so many pieces. There's something I'm thinking about that connects to this really well on a more metaphysical, is that the right word? On a more philosophical, on a spiritual level, there's things that I've taught that connect so well with some of these things I hear when people like yourself talk about science. And anyways, I guess my only platform to stand on is like, don't ignore the spirituality side, the scientific discoveries.
All right, well, we'll just leave it at that.
That's all good, man. Yep. Good luck with your next guests, and looking forward to listening to the other guests you bring on.
Thanks. All right, Lola something. I forgot what it said. Maybe they're not there anymore. Could be. Nope. They're not there. Okay, well, Lola Day, we tried. We tried so hard and got so far. What's going on in YouTube chat? In the name of Spanky, I rebuke. It's pretty choppy. I've been trying to figure out how to stream my TikTok live streams to YouTube, and it's what I'm currently doing is my PC is behind me, so I just have OBS running on my PC, and then I pulled up the stream on Google Chrome. So I'm streamcasting, watching the stream on two different screens because I'm watching my own stream on my Mac right here because I record that so that I have the chat. I'm using a lot of bandwidth. Drop the bit rate. I could do that. I know the recording bit rate is like 20,000. It's really high. But I don't know what the streaming bit rate is. I guess I could drop that down. Hello, Crystal?
Hello?
What's up?
So I just want to
All right.
I don't believe like it's true, and like I'm just confused on like why do you think it's true?
Well, the reason I think evolution is scientific evidence.
What's the overwhelming amount of scientific evidence?
Well, what I like to do often is ask people that don't believe evolution, if it was true, then what would the evidence look like?
If it was true, like it would be like we would see species that like change today.
Well, I mean, they change bit by bit today. We do see that, but no, the changes that lead to forms of life evolving into completely different forms of life, those have always been assumed to take enormous periods of time. So we wouldn't see it happen, because it's not Pokemon. It's not like a bird lays an egg and inside that egg is a completely different kind of bird. It doesn't happen that way. I very often like to compare it to languages. I don't think anybody would disagree that 3,000 years ago, almost no modern languages are spoken. Well, I don't know about almost none, but like people didn't speak English 3,000 years ago. People didn't speak the modern version of Spanish, 3,000 years ago. But so years ago, today there are. Now, is it the case that one day a group of people that don't speak English gave birth to a baby and that baby said, "Hello, governor," and the parents are like, I don't know what to say because they don't speak English. No, that's not how it happens. It happens incrementally, generation by generation, but those small changes add up over.
Okay, so we would see like to answer your question, we would see like small changes, like I guess like when we go in the ground and see like the bones of things, like we should see it like gradually change or whatever. Like what I'm talking about.
I mean, but I mean,
Like the fossil record. The fossil record. That's what I was talking about.
Okay, the problem with the fossil record is, we have fossils of things that died 500 million years ago. So the changes in organisms we're talking about occur on timescales of millions of years. So we absolutely shouldn't expect to see organisms changing before our eyes. That would actually be evidence against evolution, because evolution doesn't say that happens. That would be completely shocking,
No, but like I mean like in the fossil record we should see like one animal and then like it would like change. No, but I mean like
Yeah, we do. We have transition. Like for humans, we have thousands of specimens of our human ancestors, where we have really huge brains and we have pretty flat, small faces compared to other primates. Other primates, their brains they're big because they're primates, but they're way smaller than ours. Their eyebrow ridges are way up here, and their jaws like stick out forward. And we can see a few million years ago, our brains are a little bit smaller and our jaws are a little bit bigger. You go back more time and the brain gets even smaller, the jaw gets even bigger. And you keep doing that over and over and over again. And we have specimens like Ardipithecus, which are like 7 million years old or whatever it is, that really do look pretty. They look very much kind of like a chimp in some ways, but they're obviously very different too. But yeah, we have that for humans. We have that for horse and whale evolution is extremely well documented. Horses walk just on horses are doing this to us all the time. And we have the transitional forms where we can see horses that still only walk on one leg or one finger bone, but they have two really small vestigial fingers next to them. And then we have even older ones where toes on the ground. And if we go back even farther, we can see them with 4 of their toes on the ground. So we can see transmutated or whatever into the form that they are today in the fossil record.
Oh, okay, so I'm gonna look this up because I had no idea about that. So I'm gonna look that up. Thank you for telling me. Yeah, see ya. Thank you.
Oh, what happened there? All right.
Hi.
Now it's working.
Oh, wait,
How you
can
doing?
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me up.
You're welcome.
I wanted to commend you, first of all, when you combat all these people with so much energy that is like directed at the wrong place, and you manage to redirect it to a very sane place with a lot of grace, which, I commend because I don't have patience for it. Because when you know you're right, sometimes it's just like, ugh, you just want to be like, shut up, I know it. But, patience goes a long way. So, yeah,
Thanks.
of course.
Is that everything?
Well, I didn't just want to come up just to stroke your ego. I did want to ask you about how you came out of doubt naturally,
Doubt
right?
about
There's
what?
about just the existence, right? Because you could say creationism is dumb, evolution is true, and all these things. You could state them as fact, right? You've come into that by realizing a bunch of information. Come into that comfortably, like to be confident in what you know.
Oh, I mean, I guess I would say it just came down to just having digested a huge amount of the material. I mean, I couldn't have done this 5 years ago. When I started doing this about like 3 years ago, or yeah, something like that. I wasn't really very great at it at first because I kind of knew the facts, but I didn't know how to like articulate them very well. And there are lots of questions I couldn't answer. I wrote a book called Rational Answers to Stupid Questions where I answered all the dumb questions I hear on here. But, yeah, I couldn't have written that book 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. 2 years ago is when I started writing it. I think it came out exactly a year ago on Tuesday, I think. But anyways, yeah, it's just I was because there are these questions like, how do you explain how the bombardier beetle formed? Are really tricky, or something about like the giraffe. It couldn't bend down because if it didn't have valves in its neck, its brain would hemorrhage from all the blood pressure. But if its neck isn't that long, then it doesn't have valves, so there's no way for the giraffe to ever evolve. Those are complex and tricky,
Didn't know
but they
that.
do have answers. And just I don't know. I've read a lot of books about it, and I've watched who knows how many thousands of hours of YouTube videos on it. So I mean, experience.
So you just feel like you're on the right track. You don't ever doubt yourself and go, I'm actually that's kind of dumb because creationism is so far. So,
I mean, I've run into brick walls before. I've had a tough time figuring out what to do with it, but I just generally try to search for data for it. Like, this sucks because I'm not going to be able to remember a specific example, but when I was writing my book, there would be claims where I would talk about, because I just had like heard, most of us can't cite a source for something we know. We just have like common knowledge on things, right? So it'd be something about like evolution or
the
whatever that I.
Bible, the Bible again. I'm
What
kidding.
about the
I'm
Bible?
kidding.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's like, what about the Bible? But I would talk about like, well, we know that genes can do blank. And then I remember when I was writing the book, I would write that and I'd go, well, okay, I can't just say that. So then I'd have to go into some academic stuff, mostly like the National Institutes of Health, and look for studies that have been published about the specific thing I'm looking for. And it actually was, this happened many times. I would do that and then I would start looking it up and I would find exactly what I'm looking for. Right? It's scientific data that backs up, what I'm saying. So, yeah, I mean, it has happened, but
And like you weren't sure because how do you know it's not confirmation bias?
well, because this, so how do I want to say this? Because it's really not matter to really all that ambiguous. It's just, this is a study that clearly shows this particular effect. Like, I don't know. I don't know what an example of confirmation bias in evolution would
Well,
even
let me
look
ask
like,
you.
I
Let me
guess.
ask you
But
this: Have you read "Thinking Fast and Slow" by Daniel Kahneman?
yeah, I've read that book and I've read Noise by Daniel Kahneman too. I don't know which one's more recent. But yeah, I've read Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a really good book. Kind of hard to read though.
Towards the end, it gets more economical. Like it gets more econ based, like more
Yeah.
statistical.
Yeah, that's what he won his Nobel Prize in, was for economic research. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what made me curious about what you were saying, but I forgot. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. Anything else? I got other people that are waiting.
That's fine. Thank you for entertaining me.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. We'll go this way. And just so everybody knows, this guy loves corn dogs.
I do. I do. What's up, man? Actually, can you hear the background noise or no?
Yes.
All right, just a minute. Let me step aside. Yo, man. How old do you believe he is? Dating back, how far is the first monkey?
How old is the last first monkey?
First monkey. The first monkey to ever exist. For
I want to say 50 million years. Let's
50
ask.
million. We'll
Let's
go
ask
with
the
that.
internet. What's the old? Well, that might actually be primate. And that is tricky because
That's
not all
fine.
monkeys are not the lowest form of primates. The most basal form of primates, I think, are tarsiers. But
Yeah, you said Tarzans? Well, dude,
no,
see, here's the...
tarsiers. So this says only 20 million years ago for monkeys.
Okay.
Victoria Pithecus.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I guess the problem would be is that let's say we date back to the oldest monkey fossil we got. Let's just say
Oh, but there's
work
older
that.
ones in South America. Interesting. Okay. So, old monkey.
Old monkey, okay? Existence right now, okay? Here's the problem, dude. Where is the intermediate monkey to human fossils? Because the thing is that if we grant that 20 million years have passed since that monkey fossil, there should be at every stage of the punctuated equilibrium, there should be some form of a fossil. Because how many monkeys we're doing? We're talking about a couple billion monkeys, dude. Where are
Okay,
the
so
monkeys at, man?
how many transitional forms would satisfy you?
Okay, I would say, well, to be fair to you, I would say at least from a monkey to a human, I would say give me like 4 or 5, dude. This like period between monkey and human, like I would need to see like there should be fossils from every like stage, given 20 million years have passed. I understand there's like sediment, whatever you want to call that, and layering, and obviously things may be buried far away, but we should be able to find something. And I know we found some things that are like intermediate, but that just could have been like maybe like a deformed monkey. You know what I'm saying? So I'm being serious too. That's the one problem I've always had with the evolution, is that like we have so many fossils out there. We can find fossils for like every type of fish, you know. Like, but when it comes to like monkeys, we don't seem to be able to find very often fossils of every single many stages in between.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know off the top. I know that they exist. I want to say one of them has a name like Sahelanthropus or some shit like that. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know the names
That's
of
fine.
any, but there
You
are a
understand the argumentation,
few.
though?
There are a few fossils that are the transition between monkeys and the great apes that are known. Maybe ChatGPT can refresh my memory. Any
Well, I guess for me, like a really important one
transitional
would be like something showing a primarily, I would say like an increase in like the like structuring in the jaw, and also like the cranium, because the bodies are almost similar. I mean, you can argue that some of the frames are similar. I would look for something like the jaw, the mandibles, as well as like
Aha.
the teeth.
Okay. Ducray came in clutch in the chat with and it was Sahelanthropus chadensis. So this is
So Hollanthropus chinensis. Okay, I see that.
between 6 and 7 million years ago. It's
Okay,
the oldest known member in the human species, or in the human family tree, not human species.
okay. If I
So that's
look,
a
oh, sorry, you were saying I was gonna look it up as well. I wanted to see it.
yeah. It's she wrote it in the chat. It's pretty hard to spell. And
Okay,
then what else did she tell us about? Ardipithecus would be after. I'm looking for between monkeys and the great apes. Auroran tugensis. Ooh. See, I have so many memorized, but they're all more recent than this. That's about 6 million years ago. Okay.
this guy's like Homo heisenbergensis.
No,
Oh,
Homo heidelbergensis.
I can't read some of these, dude.
My internet is bugging. I am using so much RAM right now, though. It's a tongue twister. Australopithecus africanus. Yeah, no, these are all good that you guys are saying, but those are all in the human family tree. We're looking for links between like
Yeah, right.
great
That's what I
apes
was asking.
and monkeys.
So as far as I've ever researched, I really can't find many.
Nyanzappithecus alesi, that is 13 million years old.
Okay.
Interesting. Kenyapithecus wickeri, that's 14 million years old. Pleobodies catalone, that is 11.6 million years ago. So it gave me a list of 3, and you said between 4 or 5. So god damn it, you win.
Okay. Well, listen, I'll accept them. I guess this is the biggest problem is again, like, so let's say like we grant like 50 million, 30 million years between now and the period of the actual, let's say, monkeys, and let's say that's when they began evolving. If I grant, like, let's say every million years we show some form of like punctuated equilibrium, when we see some form of like evolution followed by stasis, there should be, I don't know how many. Let's say like what, 1 million apes were dying a year. So you should have like we should have way more fossil. I'm just giving, let's just assume a million passed away a year. We should have more fossil.
No.
You don't think so? Why? Because like the sediment and how it layers.
Well, I don't think it would. I don't think it would be 1 million a year. Would be one thing.
Well, I feel like maybe even more passed away every single year. I mean,
No, because they are there aren't even 1 million chimpanzees alive today. Now their habitat is kind of being destroyed, but I would be very, very highly surprised if even like, way before humans start, like, go back like 100,000 years ago, I'd be really surprised if there were 1 million chimpanzees. So you're not going to get 1 million dying every year, because I don't know what percent of the world population dies every year, but I think it's probably only about like 1%. I don't think a species can be stable if it's much more than that dying per year. So you'd have to have like 100 million of them to get 1 million deaths per year. So that number is completely unworkable. But the other problem is that in order to have good chances of being fossilized, you can't just die in the dirt. That's almost a guarantee that you won't be fossilized. Mud or something where there's a lot of water. Landslides, though, can do it from time to time. But primates just in general have almost never lived in environments like that. So we're really, really, really lucky to get.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. When do you think we reached our final form? How long ago?
They say that humans, Homo sapiens, are about 300,000 years old, but what they call anatomically modern Homo sapiens are like somewhere between 100 and 170,000 years old. I'm not 100% sure what exactly the exact difference between those two things is off the top of my head, but we kind of have two numbers. Is if we could somehow magically teleport a human from even 300,000 years ago to the present, and we just adopted them as a baby, they would grow up, look just like a person. I really doubt that they would have any intellectual shortcomings. Maybe a slight reduction in IQ, maybe. I don't know. But they'd be pretty much unrecognizable, or as something else. I mean, they would actually be completely recognizable. Would be a better way to say it.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen the movie 2001: The Space Odyssey?
I actually haven't. You'd be amazed at how many classical movies I haven't seen.
Oh,
I've seen Star Wars and The Godfather, the first one.
Yeah.
And that's like it. Like, name a classic movie. I haven't seen it, probably.
Oh, you're not a big movie guy? All right, fair enough.
I don't know. I guess I'm not. Yeah.
That movie's good because the reason I was asking, in the beginning of that, it shows the dawn of man, and it just has a scene with like monkeys and like how they basically evolved and how they think they did. I was going to ask you about that, but all right, man. Sounds good. Thanks for having me up.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
All right, man.
Women monkeys. She 1992. Top 5 movies of all time. Clockwork Orange, no, I haven't seen it. Hellraiser, I have not seen it. I have seen Jaws. You know what? Schindler's List might be the only black and white movie I've ever seen, which is really funny because that movie came out in the 90s. Although, well, I have seen, and it was only because we had to watch it in college. I did see, what's that Alfred Hitchcock movie where the guy breaks his leg and he has to look out his back window all day long. Casablanca, no, I've never seen it. Pulp Fiction, I've seen Pulp Fiction. Citizen Kane, nope, never seen it. Pulp Fiction, again, that was made in like 96 or something. I went Rear Window. Yeah, I knew it was something about a window, but no, yeah, you'd be amazed at how many classic movies I haven't seen because it's almost all of them. The Matrix, that's not a classic movie. Like you guys are confusing movies that are really good with classic movies. Psycho, no, I've never seen Psycho. I have seen it in high school for class. What was it? Oh yeah, 5 favorite movies. Dances with Wolves is my favorite movie. I would say The Departed is probably a good number 2. The Dark. Sorry, I had to laugh at something. So I got 3 there. The Land Before Time. Can I say The Land Before Time? That's probably one of my 5 favorite movies. This is really hard. The Rescuers Down Under. I love that movie so much. That I'd probably, oh man, Land Before Time or The Rescuers Down Under. If I had to pick one, I'd probably actually go with The Rescuers. Twister. No. Planet of the Apes. I never saw the original. No. Interstellar's good, but no. Natural Born Killers. I watched that movie once at my one of my best friend Garrett's houses at like 1 a.m, and it was the most fever dream, surreal experience of my life. I was so tired just watching it and just being like, am I actually awake right now? I mean, all-time favorite movies. Man, that's hard. Honestly, I actually think that Infinity War was really an incredibly good movie and well done. I thought it was really poetic and it wasn't cheesy like a lot of Marvel movies are. So I'm actually tempted to. I gave you 6, so I don't know. I don't know, but between The Land Before Time, The Rescuers, and Down Under, and Infinity War, I don't know which one doesn't make the cut, but there we go. Better than Endgame. Endgame is good. The second time I watched Endgame, I was like, this actually is really good. It's one of the best Marvel movies, I think. But same with The Dark Knight Rises. Watched it, but the next time I watched it, I was like, it is actually pretty good. It's just that the one before is just kind of a masterpiece. We're gonna end it there. The YouTube stream I don't think is even watchable at this point also. So, but I got all I need. So I will see everybody